For years, Western powers believed Southeast Asia would be theirs to mold. They saw Indonesia and Vietnam as swing states in their geopolitical contest with China. But what they didn't see coming was the silent rebellion, a rejection of dependency, a dismissal of lectures, and a pivot not just toward China, but toward self-determination and regional power. What's happening now is not some protest movement, it's a quiet divorce, a strategic reset. And if you're still looking at Southeast Asia through a Western lens, you're already 5 years behind. Please take a moment to drop a like and subscribe to the channel. Let's start where it hurts. China is now the dominant trade partner for both Vietnam and Indonesia. Vietnam's trade with China hit $230 billion in 2024, leaving the United States in the dust. Indonesia's exports to China now exceed its exports to the United States and Europe combined. Meanwhile, Western firms, tangled in political pressure and red tape, are backing out. Chinese firms, they're stepping in, bringing long-term deals in minerals, energy, logistics, and infrastructure. This isn't decoupling, this is recoupling with Beijing. And the idea that these countries are still hedging between China and the West is pure fantasy. Vietnam's 2024 Defense White Paper removed subtle anti-China language that had been there for decades. Indonesia rejected United States attempts to militarize the Natuna Islands. They're not picking sides, they're picking control over subservience. The West sees this as betrayal, the region sees it as liberation. Just look at the facts on the ground. Indonesia's Jakarta-Bandung high-speed rail, which is Southeast Asia's first bullet train, was built by China. Funded, delivered, and even completed ahead of schedule. The West? Well, they were too busy writing reports on whether it was sustainable. Vietnam, once wary of the Belt and Road, is now sneaking in berry-linked infrastructure through these regional investment networks. While the US delivers speeches, China delivers steel, speed, and success. On the military front, the shift is just as blunt. Indonesia canceled a $300 million drone deal with the US after endless restrictions and instead ordered combat drones from Turkey and China, no strings attached. Vietnam isn't buying into American defense either. They're quietly sourcing gear from Russia and India, keeping control of their military autonomy. Because, the lesson is clear. US weapons come with politics. China's come with production lines. Then there's resource nationalism. Indonesia banned raw nickel exports and told Tesla and others, build factories here or get out. Freeport-McMoRan was forced to give up majority control of the Grasberg mine. The West sulked. China said no problem. They built smelters, processing plants, and power stations to match. They didn't flinch. That's the difference. Even the currency game is shifting. In 2025, 1/4 of China-Vietnam trade was settled in yuan or dong, bypassing the US dollar entirely. Indonesia signed local currency swap deals across ASEAN and with China. What's happening here is a controlled demolition of dollar dependency, and it's happening quietly, right under Wall Street's nose. And what about the supply chains? Ironically, United States' efforts to move manufacturing out of China have only made Vietnam more dependent on Chinese inputs. American firms relocating to Hanoi still need Chinese electronics, logistics, and labor pipelines. Indonesia's industrial boom is being powered by Chinese-backed electric vehicle and battery plants. So even as the West runs from China, Southeast Asia is getting pulled deeper into its orbit. Now let's talk culture, because this is where China is playing chess while the West's still playing checkers. In Vietnam, Chinese language education is being embedded into high schools and universities, especially for tech and engineering students. In 2024, Indonesia signed a deal to scale up Confucius Institutes in its public universities. Western soft power is fading, not because it's hated, but because it's irrelevant. China is on the ground speaking the language, literally. Meanwhile, public trust in the United States is collapsing. In Indonesia, only 1/3 of respondents in a 2025 ICS poll considered the United States a reliable partner. That's down from 60% just 5 years earlier. In Vietnam, the youth are plugged into Chinese e-commerce, TikTok, and Alibaba's business tools. They don't see China as the enemy. They see it as the ecosystem. And when it comes to investment, the gap is laughable. Biden's 2023 Indo-Pacific pledge was $150 million across all ASEAN nations. China pledged $1.5 billion, 10 times more, and delivered. Even worse, Western investment often comes with a user manual. Labor laws, climate targets, political reforms. China just signs the deal and builds. In 2024, Indonesia's sovereign wealth fund secured $3 billion in equity from Chinese banks, while United States and European Union investors were still filling out impact reports. You think that's bad? Here's worse. Western foreign direct investment in Southeast Asia is increasingly shallow. Fintech, social media, crypto startups. Meanwhile, Chinese foreign direct investment builds ports, refineries, airports, and cement plants. One creates selfies, the other creates jobs. Even on green energy, China wins. Indonesia's $20 billion just energy transition deal with Western powers is stuck in negotiations. Meanwhile, Chinese solar and hydro projects are already running, feeding real electricity to real people. Western climate deals move like molasses. Chinese ones move like machines. And there's no desire, absolutely zero, in either country to join US-led military blocs. No AUKUS, no Quad, no NATO-style commitments. These countries know exactly how that ends, with foreign troops on your soil and foreign agendas in your parliament. They want partnerships, not puppetry. And, China respects that boundary, the US doesn't. Even education is turning, Western scholarships are just flatlining. While China is busy funding regional think tanks, exchange programs, and research institutes, the AIIB, which is China's alternative to the World Bank, is now funding major infrastructure in both Vietnam and Indonesia, without forcing austerity or political restructuring. It's kind of like the IMF, minus the whole colonizer attitude. And they're not just aligning with China, they're really aligning with multipolar Asia. Indonesia is actively exploring joining BRICS. Vietnam is leaning deeper into ASEAN plus 3 frameworks and RCEP, a massive Asia-centered trade pact that honestly, the US was never even a part of. Why is that? Because their future isn't in Brussels or Washington, it's right next door. Finally, the media narrative is just collapsing. Western outlets keep framing these countries as unstable, corrupt, and vulnerable to China. But people aren't buying it anymore. Locals aren't reading the New York Times. They're watching regional news, listening to their own leaders, and deciding their own path. And that path, it's not pro-China, it's post-West. This isn't rebellion, it's evolution. It's not about loving China, it's about outgrowing the West. Indonesia and Vietnam aren't defecting, they're ascending. And they're doing it on their terms, with whoever shows up and respects them as equals. And in 2025, that sure as hell isn't the West. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more content.